Te Pāti Māori make no excuses. They know their supporters aren't watching Parliament TV or poring over Hansard transcripts. But as the party heads into next month's election, they're cautiously optimistic about picking up several more seats to return to Parliament with a larger caucus. But is it a party for whom representation is more important than explicit policy outcomes? I sat down on Thursday in Tauranga with co-leader Rawiri Waititi.
Tēnā koe haki, kia ora tātou.
I want to start with policy. You are proposing a radical change to taxation in New Zealand, including a wealth tax. It'd be 4% for people with a net wealth over $5 million, 8% annually for net wealth over $10 million. How do you calculate it and how do you enforce it?
Well, look, there's huge inequities here in terms of the wealth distribution in Aotearoa. There has to be some radical change. There has to be some transformative change in the tax system. The way we've calculated is to ensure that the wealthy are now starting to pay their fair share towards the upkeep of the country. If they're only paying 9.4% and the rest of the country is paying 20.4 to 30% in tax, you know, that tells us that there's huge inequality in our tax system. So a fairer tax system where they're paying their fair share based on their income. It's like how poor people pay tax based on their income. The numbers work out to ensure that we can claw back about $16 billion, which is inclusive of tax fraud, which is costing this country $7 billion a year. And so, you know, making sure that we've got the resources to be able to go and track those things, I think, is vitally important.
How do you calculate the net worth every year?
Well,
who enforces it?
Well, the government enforces tax anyway. So, you know, we've got to enforce it. We wanted to put money into the SFO and into IRD also to ensure that we can enforce it. And to be able to claw back some of that tax that they're actually not contributing.
But is this a serious
they want
policy?
To contribute.
Yeah, is it a serious policy though, or an aspirational policy?
Well,
because
look, every report, the report that came out of IRD and every other report that's come out, even the internal reports that have come out from the finance ministers, have all said that there needs to be a wealth tax. And so a wealth tax at 4%, an empty house tax at 3%, all of those have been advised by those particular reports that, you know, right from Cullen all the way through to Robinson, have all said that the country should have a wealth tax.
I'm interested in your policy though, as it stands. So do trusts count?
We will go after everybody's individual wealth. And
so if their wealth is kept in a trust, that doesn't count?
Well, if your wealth is kept in a trust, it will be looked at as your individual wealth. So if you've got wealth in a trust, that would be absolutely taxed.
So hang on, are trustees taxed or are beneficiaries taxed?
If you own those assets in that trust, you will be taxed.
No, but this is how trusts are set up, right? So is it the trustee, the beneficiary, a discretionary beneficiary?
The IRD and the SFO will ensure that if you are associated to that trust, that's your individual wealth, you will be taxed.
Sounds like there's some detail missing here, right? So, but if I was a wealthy person...
No detail missing.
Well, please, beneficiary, discretionary beneficiary, or trustee?
The thing is, if you are owning that trust, you will be taxed on the individual ownership of that.
Okay. The company tax rate you want to lift from 28 to 33%. So if I was a wealthy New Zealander or someone running a company looking to invest in New Zealand, why would I choose to invest in New Zealand?
We've spoken to many of those people who own those businesses and said, yes, we would be taxed, but it used to be 33%. In the John Key government, we jumped back 28%. The investment into the country is one thing, but not paying your fair share is another thing. And so I think taking it back to 33%, before the Key government, there was no issue. Jumping it back to 28%, may have been an incentive at that particular time. But there's got to be, if you have a look at the distance between the rich and the poor, it's getting worse and worse. When you've got banks that are making $7 billion a year, taking that money overseas, not investing it back, that money belongs to New Zealanders. And it belongs to Aotearoa. And so you can't have Australian-owned banks taking our money and investing it overseas. That must be used for the greater good of Aotearoa.
But that's going to happen if you introduce a wealth tax, right? If I was a wealthy New Zealander with a net wealth more than $10 million and you're going to tax me 8% on that net wealth every year, why wouldn't I move overseas where I don't get taxed?
Well, you move to Australia, you'll get taxed because they've also got a wealth tax, they've got GST, they've got all those types of things as well. So
Australia doesn't have a wealth tax.
Yeah, but they've got it in other things. So taking GST off Kai, right? They've got an empty house tax.
They don't have a wealth tax, but my question is the wealth tax.
Yeah, but it's all married.
No, but I mean, if
because it's the wealthy that owns those things.
But if the wealthy all move overseas, then who's investing in new companies and improving productivity?
They've got it in other ways where they're hitting the rich. We're putting it in a wealth tax, which has been advised in the last IRD report, and also
I don't remember an IRD report recommending an 8% net wealth tax over $10 million. Te Pāti Māori has been a big supporter of Te Aka Whai Ora, the Maori Health Authority.
We were the only ones that campaigned on it.
And you use it as an example for the sort of by Māori, for Māori approach you want to see in public services. Now, it is early days, obviously, but a report by the Hauora Māori Advisory Committee was pretty scathing in its progress so far. It found the Commission had underspent by tens of millions of dollars, had failed to recruit staff from DHBs, and was doing an overall poor job of commissioning services. So why should that model be replicated?
After 9 months, you're going to do a report on Te Aka Whai. I tell you, that was the stupidest thing that ever happened. They should throw that report straight out into the bin.
Here's the thing, though.
There is no way. How many times has the Ministry of Health failed? Māori are still dying 7 to 10 years earlier than non-Māori. We are still higher rates of cardiovascular disease, diabetes, cancer. And so the system has been failing us for 183 years. And they expect the Māori Health Authority to make a big difference, to clean up 183 years of damn mess that this government and the system has created amongst our people. That was a shocking decision. Whoever the decision was needs to look at themselves very hard in the mirror.
The thing is, though, there's a political dimension to this, right? In that the National Party, from the word go, has opposed Te Aka Whai Ora, the Māori Health Authority. So in running that authority, they had a very limited window to prove their worth, to prove their efficacy before facing some of those political pressures of an election cycle. And now we have a possibility of a new national government that's going to come in and say, look, they're doing a terrible job. They might only be 9 months in, but we're going to scrap it.
Yeah, and that's the problem. That's the problem with those types of parties, National and ACT, who want to see Māori die 7 to 10 years early, who want to see incarceration. Oh, no, absolutely. I think we have to contest that. Well, you can contest it, but you tell me where the data changes.
If you can point to any statement from any MP who says they want Māori to die earlier.
It's in their actions. And so not wanting to change the current system that has failed Māori for 183 years, it's continuously doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. That's what the National Party want to do. That's what the ACT Party want to do. And that in their actions, it's actually saying, we want to keep Māori where they are. Get our country back on track. On what track? On the same track that it was when they were government 6 years ago.
You have a policy when it comes to tamariki Māori, and I wanted to ask you about tamariki Māori who are in care at the moment. Is there any form of state care that you think is appropriate?
Never. State should never ever be caring for anybody. Nobody. And actually in the Tiriti o Waitangi, if you look at Article 1, right, Article 1 gave kāwanatanga, gave governance to Pākehā to be able to look after themselves. Not once in any of the 3 articles did it say Māori will be in state care. Not once. And so if you look at Article 1, that's about kāwanatanga. What we want to do is have a mokopuna entity there where we were able to look after our own tamariki mokopuna. We were able to look after our own health outcomes. We were able to look after our own educational aspirations, because that's the right that we're given. We are a tiriti-based, rights-based party movement. And so Article 1, kāwanatanga, look after yourselves. Article 2, mana motu hake, we look after ourselves. But we must be treated as equals in this country, which the last 2 articles have not been honoured. And so the state should never ever, there's not once where in the Tiriti o Waitangi where it says, we give you rights to now look after us in state care. There's nothing in the treaty that says that. And so there's an issue, huge breach. And so Article 1, kāwanatanga, look after yourselves. Article 2, we look after ourselves. Article 3, we all get treated equally.
One other policy I want to ask about. Earlier this year, you announced New Zealand should be militarily neutral, the Switzerland of the South Pacific. So what happens if one of our Pacific neighbours requires military assistance in defending its exclusive economic zone?
We've never been exclusive of the Pacific, so in that policy it makes quite clear that we are that we should be looking after the Pacific as a one. We're all tangata moana, we're all related. And
so does that mean militarily, though?
that means whatever we need to do to look after ourselves as the Pacific, because we're all related.
So my question is that, for example, just to take, if Samoa had some sort of intrusion in its exclusive economic zone
Yep.
and sought New Zealand's assistance
Yes.
to defend it militarily, is that something you would be prepared
Absolutely.
to support? So it's not really neutral, is it?
Well, not if you don't see the whakapapa. So if the
But it's not,
whakapapa
I mean,
between
if the comparison is with
the
Switzerland,
producing
though.
countries,
Right,
we see whakapapa.
right.
And that's the intrinsic difference between the way Te Iwi Māori thinks.
Well, I'm using
and the
your
way-
example of Switzerland,
Yeah.
but to be 100% clear on this policy, you would support militarily
We would.
defending other tangata moana countries in the
Absolutely.
Pacific.
We are obligated to because of our whakapapa. But the problem is that if you look at World War II, per capita, Māori lost more than anybody else in that war. And not only that, when we came home, we lost more. We came back after the big ships had come back. We lost out on the land ballots, the big farms that the mokopunas are now still continuing to benefit off. Our people didn't get that. They weren't even allowed in the pubs when they got back. So they didn't get the benefits they were promised. And so why would we want to go over and fight wars for other people where we lost more life than anybody else, come back to a country that still didn't give us the honour of being true citizens in this country?
Your party is constantly advocating for more money for whānau order. But the commissioning agency chair is one of your candidates. The commissioning agency CEO is your party president. How is that not a gross conflict of interest?
There's huge conflicts of interest everywhere if you were to look at it.
So you accept that that's a conflict of interest?
No, I don't. I'm using your words. So you're saying it's a conflict. But if you look at it...
No, I'm asking how is it not?
Well, I'll explain to you. If you look at the affiliated members of Labour, who are they? Doctors, nurses, teachers. Are they conflicted?
I don't understand the comparison.
They're affiliated members to the Labour Party.
Yeah, but what's whānau order? It receives tens of millions of dollars of funding.
What I'm saying is, why has that question been asked of everybody? And then you look at business. How many businesses, right, get government contracts? Government contracts. They get levies. They get tax breaks. They get all of these things from the government, and they pay into National Enact. I'm just saying, why is it hypocrisy? When it comes to Maori businesses.
Because you have a candidate. You have a candidate who is the chair, and your party president is the CEO of the commissioning agency.
You've had candidates from Fonterra, from all of these types of organisations standing for National. You've had others standing. You've had union leaders standing for Labour. And here's the problem: when the Maoris do it, you're naughty and you're a conflict of interest.
You were suspended from Parliament after appearing to breach name suppression for a case currently before the courts. What on earth were you doing?
What on earth were they doing, suspending me?
What were you doing?
What was I doing? I asked a simple question in the House, but I'm not going to go into that because...
No, I know you're not prepared to repeat it outside of the House, but why did you do that?
Because the Party of Māori actually is probably the fairest and truest party that stands for equal law and order.
So do you not believe in judicial authority and independence?
I believe that there should be law and order for all that's equal. Unfortunately, Māori are 50% of the prison population, are male. The male prison population in Aotearoa, 50% are Māori. 64% of the female prison population are Māori. That's not fair. And so when I hear other parties talking about a fairer justice system, hard on crime, law and order, and we have a justice system that has one rule for one lot and one rule for others,
so
that's an issue.
You think as a politician you should be able to make unilateral decisions about issues of justice?
Politics, governments make unilateral decisions all the time.
As a politician, should you just be able to overrule the courts when it suits?
As a politician, you challenge it's a challenge of ideas, right? And you must push back against those who profess to be the authority or the spokesperson on law and order.
But it's about judicial independence, though, isn't it?
Well, there's judicial independence. The thing is, judicial independence should not make their judgments based on political outcomes.
Well, the Treaty of Waitangi has a mixed legal status at the moment, but if you're to argue that politicians should be able to ride roughshod over judicial authority when they choose, what is to stop other politicians from completely ignoring legal decisions that establish a legal status for te tiriti?
Te tiriti should never ever be in a legal space.
Should never be?
Never. Once you put it in there, it becomes kāwanatanga.
Did you regret that?
What?
What you said in Parliament?
I don't regret anything I say in Parliament. The thing is that it was said, I have been reprimanded for it, I've been suspended for it, you know, I can't take it back. It's done.
Do you think it was the right thing to do?
I will always stand up for equal rights and opportunities for te iwi Māori, and especially in a justice system that continues, a racist justice system that continues to incarcerate my people.
Do you think divisions between Māori and non-Māori are any worse in this election campaign and political environment than in the past?
I think it's more heightened, and it's heightened because of the social theory being used by some of the other political parties on the right. You know, when you use words like apartheid, that was a white supremacist tool used in Africa against black Africans. Separatism and segregation, those are white supremacist tools used in America against African Americans. Subhuman, when you use words like subhuman, that's a word the Jews used to use to, the Nazis used to use to explain the Jews, to identify the Jews. So when you're using that type of social theory in the communities, of course it's going to create moral panic and fear. And especially in older Pākehā people who deserve the integrity to retire in peace, to have the quiet life that they've hard work for, but to then have the social theory create moral panic and fear, there's an issue. And this is what's happening. This is what's happening. Because we fight to be the best tangata whenua we can that Aotearoa deserves, doesn't mean that we're anti anybody else. Absolutely not. When you're wanting to blow up things in Pacific, you know, people's Ministry for Pacific Peoples, all those types of things, you've never heard that from us once. That we want to inflict those types of things.
It is a known fact that the Maori genetic makeup is stronger than others.
Well, it's stronger in me, and I've got a whole lot of genetics in me.
That was on your website. Is that racist?
Why? How can it be racist when you're trying to empower a people that are climbing out from the bottom of the bonnet of colonial violence for the last 183 years? How is that racist?
I should
when all you're doing is trying to build your people
I should know that statement has been removed. It is a known fact that the Maori genetic makeup is stronger than others. It was on your sport policy on your website.
Well,
but when you think about the language you've just criticised and you compare that with the language on your own website, can you acknowledge that perhaps your language has contributed to these tensions?
How was that imposed on anybody else? We took it to ourselves.
You're talking to everyone when you publish it on a website, Rawiri.
Te Pāti Māori directly talks to our people. And so we're trying to rebuild our people, right? From, like I said, years and years of colonial violence on our people. And so why can't we call ourselves magic? Why can't we call ourselves proud? Why can't we believe in ourselves? And why can't we say to our people that your genetics means something, that you can be proud of that?
Do you stand by that comment?
A lot of sports people do.
What about you, though?
A lot of sports people have come out and said, my Māori whakapapa has made me a better athlete. You don't have to look too far to know who those sports people are.
What happens if you lose?
Then you lose.
But in this election, I mean, you have had an impactful 3 years, but there is a strong likelihood that a national-led government, maybe a National Act government, could be in power after October 14th. What will that mean for Te Pāti Māori?
Nothing. What that means for Te Pāti Māori is that we continue to do the mahi that we're here to do. But I don't care about what's happening with National Act or Labour or the Greens. At the end of the day, both those governments have harmed our people. And Te Pāti Māori are not here to ensure that one gets in or that one gets in. We will continue to ensure that the voice of te iwi Māori is heard unapologetically in that house, regardless of who's the government. We've moved on from the reliance on parties that have continued to harm our people. We don't subscribe to that. We don't subscribe to that anymore. And so we'd never lose. We will continue the fight. Much of the fight for te iwi Māori has been done outside of Parliament before the establishment of Te Pāti Māori 16 years ago. Land marches, petitions. We have been political for a very, very long time, and that won't change.
The reason I ask is John Tamahiri, your party president, had an interesting comment he made this week. Quote, if you're going to treat us as just some new breed that just arrived here and wipe out our rights, there will be trouble in this country. So considering the possibility of a government with a support party that would be committed to rolling back some of the policies you have supported, I'm wondering what difference the next 3 years will mean for Te Pāti Māori.
Oh, Te Pāti Māori will continue to push our kaupapa, and the trouble is, it's not we're going to inflict trouble. The trouble is that he's talking about is there will be trouble would be Māori taking 20 to 10 to 30 years back step from where we've come to now. And so if there are huge policy changes, if they're going to take away the rights to Māori wards, the rights to have a Māori authority, which is very similar to kohanga reo kura kaupapa, that hasn't hurt anybody. It's actually had better achievement outcomes than mainstream schools for Māori, although 80% of our people are still in mainstream schools. The kids that are in, the 20% that are in kura kaupapa are achieving better results. And that's what that system can do. We want a health system where our people are getting better results. If you gave us the same amount of time and the same amount of resource that the current system has had to fail our people, I'll tell you, you'd have a different, you would have the tangata whenua Aotearoa deserves.
It's Rawiri Waititi. After that interview, we felt it was important to give a right of reply to Rawiri's comments regarding the National and ACT parties and Maori life expectancy. So here's what they had to say. National's health spokesperson Shane Reti said this is an appallingly reckless claim. National will deliver better health outcomes for all New Zealanders, including Maori. National has already announced many health policies, including funding 13 new cancer treatments, which will have life-extending or life-saving benefits for everyone, but especially Māori, who are overrepresented in cancer statistics. And ACT leader David Seymour says New Zealand faces serious challenges and needs honest, healthy debate on what policies will overcome them. ACT opposes the Māori Health Authority because division doesn't work. Mr Waititi would be better off explaining what he will do for Māori instead of divisively and dishonestly misrepresenting other parties' motivations. We represent a growing number of Māori who want a better tomorrow from devolved social services that ACT supports and are tired of Mr Waititi's theatrics.